Hello everyone and welcome to the Reading Alchemist. This video is going to be, I'm bringing back the weekly Circle Up videos. I don't know if I'm going to post these videos on the same day every week, but I want to at least film one every week and then I'll post it sometime following the next week. If I'm able to edit it. Some weeks you might get two of these videos in the same week. That's kind of sometimes how some of these weeks are going to go, where I'm not able to get it out in time for it to actually occur on a week, so you might get it the next week. 1 week you might get 2, 1 week you might get 3. Sometimes it's just how it's going to depend. I'll try to stagger the videos at that point, not with other content, but with other videos, or possibly like days in between where there's no content upload for you guys. So we're going to bring back the Circle Up. This is a concept that I got from Amy over at A Star Reads. She does these Sunday sum ups where she posts a video every Sunday of where she is up with the books that she's currently reading, and she gives a book review of the book that she's finished. The books that she's finished. And I want to do the same thing. I don't know if I'm going to include status updates for the ebooks that I'm reading, because ebooks is where I tend to jump around with books, and I only tend to read them either at lunch, sometimes before bed. If I'm out somewhere and I don't have the opportunity to read physically, I'll read my ebook then. So for my ebooks, I think I'm just going to give you guys book reviews of those ones, but if it's a physical read, I will give you guys a video update for it in progress, because you can see my progress. So I think every week we'll start with the book that I'm currently in the middle of. If at the time I'm filming, I'm in currently. If a book for that week I'm currently in the middle of. Even if I end up filming it later, I'll go back in and figure out where I would have ended before the new week began. So if you see weird connotations between these videos and between what you guys may see on like my Goodreads or on my Storygraph page, don't question it. Sometimes I won't have time to film update quits and stuff for these videos on the actual date that I finished the book, so that may be why. But so for every physical book I read, or every physical book, manga, comic book, I'm going to give you guys a full book review after I finished it. For the audiobooks and ebooks that I read, you'll get an update on those reviews as I finish them, if I end up finishing one during the week, because I tend to read those sporadically. Let's start off with the book that I'm currently reading, and that is I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. So in this is one of Alice Oseman's standalone novels. After the Heartstopper graphic novels and Nick and Charlie, Alice Oseman went on to write some other standalone novels. So she wrote Solitaire, which I read last year, gave 4 stars. I've read Love Is by Alice Oseman, gave 4.5 stars. And I have read Radio Silence, but I read it before I was doing book 2, so we're going to have to reread that book eventually. At the time, I think, where I was reading that book, I think I would give it 4 stars, but upon reread, I may end up giving it a higher amount. And, of course, she's written 2 novellas, Nick and Charlie being one, already read, 5 stars, absolutely loved it, and then This Winter, which I still have to read. So this is one of her standalone books. And I'm absolutely really enjoying this book. So in this book, we follow a girl named Angel, whose actual real name is Faresha. She is a Muslim girl living, of course, in the United Kingdom. That's where all of Alice Oseman's books are set. And in this story, we follow Angel as she's traveling into London to do a meet and greet and go to a concert of her favorite band, known as The Ark. So we follow her as she's going to meet the group, and we also follow Jimmy Cagaris, who is, of course, the frontrunner for the band for the art. The two end up meeting at some point throughout the book and get into some shenanigans and stuff together. If you guys really like books that are about music, like Daisy Jones and the Six, you'll probably really enjoy this book as well, since it is about a band making music. The band called The Ark, I think they do rock music, but their main song, called Joan of Arc, takes actual moments in history from Christianity, as we find that our main character, Jimmy, is I was going to say devout Christian, but he is a Christian nonetheless, and our, of course, main character, Angel, is Muslim. One of the reasons why I'm absolutely loving reading this book is not only it's about music and band. I love to listen to music on my way home and my way to work and car rides if we go on long trips. And I've been to a couple of concerts that I've absolutely really enjoyed. And I'd like to go to a couple more later on in the future. But the main probably trigger warning for you guys for this book is this book dives deep into mental health. Our main character, as you learn in pretty much almost the first chapter, he suffers from panic attacks and anxiety, which I relate to so much. I don't suffer with panic attacks. I've gotten a few in my life that have lasted like maybe a couple minutes or two. But I desperately suffer with anxiety. So to read a book where one of the main characters suffers with anxiety that I typically suffer with, which is the overthinking portion of anxiety, was really eye-opening for me. And one of the main reasons why I absolutely am loving reading this book. I also like books, of course, that are set in the UK. I want to travel to the UK sometime eventually in my life, so to read books that are set in the UK, I think is absolutely enjoyable. Very quick and fast read. Font is fairly big for this paperback. And honestly, if this band actually really truly existed and wasn't fictional, I would love to listen to their music, as I think it's fascinating, with it taking a lot of hint points from Christianity, which I am a Christian. I would probably fall hell over heels and follow this band. There is also LGBTQ plus representation, as our main character, Jimmy, we find out is transgender and gay. And there's another person in the band, one of his bandmates is bisexual. So, LGBTQ plus mental health representation about music, and not an actual typical love story, but a friendship story nonetheless. Spells like this may be a 5-star read. So, I'm here. We'll probably in the next video have the finishing update for this book. And then, the book that I actually ended up finishing this week is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I was thinking when I eventually picked this book up that I would probably give it 5 stars because it is a low-stakes fantasy, which is one of the fantasy genres that, lifestyles that I truly enjoy. I like cozy fantasies, and sometimes you need a break from your typical high fantasy, which I do like. And this is a low-stakes fantasy novel. It's about this girl named Viv, who she is an ogre, and decides one day to leave the life of being an ogre and doing dungeon crawls. Decides to open up in this city a coffee shop for the very first time. We see the beginnings of her starting and running this business of running a coffee shop in the city that's never heard of coffee before. And all the twists and turns that come, of course, with running a business as first-time business owners learn. There's an LGBTQ plus There's an LGBTQ plus relationship in this book between Viv and Sandry, which is a succubus. So there is a female LGBTQ plus romance between the two, further later down the line in the book. So I ended up giving this book a 9 for characters. I really do enjoy the characters in this book, just didn't quite scrape the 10 for characters for me. I think it's because with the cozy fantasy aspect, it took my while for my brain to actually fully form relationship with these characters, as not only is it super short, but just because it was cozy fantasy and not high stakes, somewhat high stakes, it took me a while for me to fall in love and appreciate these characters. So got 9 for characters. Plot and writing both got 8. In terms of it being a cozy fantasy, not a whole lot of stuff happened in this book for the somewhat amount of pages. And you sort of went through the book learning the ins and outs of this coffee shop. And there was a plot moment that happened in this book, and of course it's more character driven, which I'm a little bit iffy about whether or not I like character driven books. So that's why I kind of gave it an 8 for plot. While it was high fantasy and low stakes, I think there wasn't enough low stakes for me to where I got fully invested in the plot. I do want to go to this coffee shop one day. If I was in the world, I would travel to this coffee shop because I do like coffee. An 8 for writing. I do like the writing in this book, but when I was reading it, it took me a while for me to actually get used to reading this book, and my reading speed was less than it normally is for about probably the first 50 pages or so. I do think that's because I was kind of at my grandparents' house when I started reading this book, so I do think it's because I was more focused on what was going on there than the actual book, which didn't help. I also read this book in a weekend where it was essentially just me here at the house, and I kind of heard other noises around, so it sort of took me out of reading this book. Good writing nonetheless. Travis Baldree is probably going to come out with more books similar, set in the same world, somewhat also high fantasy, low stakes, which I'm very looking forward to reading. I think he has a one that's about a bookshop coming out, which sparks like that one could be 5 stars. I gave this book a 9 for setting. I enjoy the setting of this book with it being set in a coffee shop. I love coffee shops. When I was in college, there was this coffee shop that I'd go to, not every weekend, but pretty much the weekends where I could, and I'd get work done in there. I never read in a coffee shop because at that point in my life, I wasn't back into my heavy reading because I have now been with work. This helps me de-stress from work. With it only being set in the coffee shop, I would have liked if there were more moments spent roaming around the city, because this book is set in the city of Thune. I would love if we got a map of the city in the front of the book, because we don't have. I would have loved to see a map of the city in the book and where the coffee shop was located in terms of the city layout, and I would have liked there to be more description of the actual city itself. We didn't really get very much, and that's what I wanted. And then I ended up giving this book a 9 for enjoyment. I enjoyed my time reading this book, especially once I got into the story itself and how the writing is laid out. I did fairly enjoy my time reading this book and have a good time with it. It ended up getting an 8.67 out of 10, which is a 4.5 star. Which is honestly really, really good for this type of work. I will be checking out more of Travis Baldree's writing. So look forward to more book reviews of his books when they come out. I'm excited to read more of his works, because this was a debut. So yeah, that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys are excited for me to start along this journey of actually giving you book reviews of the books that I end up finishing, as I want to sort of have that aspect of my channel, as that is the main reason why I have this booktube channel. So stick around for more of these circle up videos in the future, and any other videos that I decide to post. Comment down below if you guys have read these books before and what you guys thought of them, as I would love to know if your tastes are similar to mine. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and remember, we are the one within the all.